Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Wagner with Sarasota Vascular Specialist, and today we're going to talk about chronic venous insufficiency. CVI, as it's called, is when you have valves in our veins that aren't doing their job, meaning they're being insufficient. We have these one-way valves in our veins that let blood go up to the heart, and then as you stand up and it settles with gravity, it prevents the backflow of blood. So if you think of a water balloon, right, sitting on a table, it's an amorphous blob. It's just kind of even pressure everywhere. But if you pick up the water balloon by its knot, it's going to be skinny at the top, wide at the bottom, kind of that teardrop shape. If we stand up, our veins want to act like water balloons. And so theoretically, right, all of our blood should just rush to our feet, our legs should swell up like water balloons, and we should pass out. Well, that doesn't happen because our veins can't hold that much blood, but also because we have these one-way valves. Our veins should be bringing blood from our legs back up to the heart. So this is the valves as they're open, is a one direction going up this way. Well, if we stand up or if we cough, the top vein valves or a series of vein valves should be snapping shut, kind of like this. So this is a closed valve. This is a good, competent, sufficient valve. This valve isn't being pressurized to shut down yet, so blood flow might still be going up a little bit, but this one has done its job and it snaps shut. If the valves aren't doing their job, either because the veins have gotten varicose or they've gotten big and aneurysmal and they're stretching out, and those little leaflets, these little parts here, aren't connecting, you'll have this backflow of blood, and that's what's being shown right here. Or if the valves themselves are just floppy and not doing their job, you can also have a backflow of blood there. And so what can happen sometimes is you have one or two valves up top that aren't doing their job. So say, this valve up here is doing its job where it starts to fail. What happens is that vein starts to get pressurized and stretched out, just like that teardrop at the bottom of that water balloon, and it starts slowly pulling that vein apart and separating those valves. And then the next set of valves fail, and the same thing happens, and the next set of valves fail. And then the whole vein started to dilate up, and now all that pressure, that standing column of pressure of all the fluid on top, is now being pushed down to the bottom. And then our veins really start acting like those teardrop water balloons. Well, that increased pressure has to go somewhere. So it goes from the bigger veins with the failing valves, and now it's going to all these little tributary veins. So usually small veins should bring blood flow to bigger veins, to the bigger veins, to the biggest veins, then back up to the heart. Well, if the big veins are flowing backwards and allowing all this high pressure to build up, that's then going to pressurize the next size smaller veins, and that's then going to pressurize the next size smaller veins. So imagine, like, instead of the roots of a tree that are bringing water nutrients back up to the tree higher up, imagine if everything's going down below, you're going to get soggy soil underneath. That happens when all that pressurized fluid inside of the blood, the plasma of the blood, is being pushed out through the little capillaries, the really tiny veins, and the walls aren't very strong. That fluid, the plasma, gets pushed out, and it's between the tissues of the skin and the muscles. That's called edema, or the edematous fluid. One of the major concerns when that happens is that fluid, it's the plasma of the blood. That's a nutrient-rich growth medium. That's the same thing that we put on a petri dish to try and grow a culture. So if you get a nick in the skin or a small cut, it can infect that fluid, and you have a rip-roaring soft tissue infection called cellulitis. That'll put you in the hospital for like a week at a minimum. And so the way we can prevent, chronic venous insufficiency from becoming a debilitating problem that could be life-threatening is to make sure that you have good compression, that your tissues are well protected. And if there's anything we can do to prevent, the backflow of blood in the first place, or shut down or identify the bad acting veins. In summary, chronic venous insufficiency is when you have long-standing problems where the vein valves aren't doing their job, be it in the superficial veins, meaning the veins between the muscle and the skin, or the deep veins, meaning the ones that are between the layers of the muscles and by the bones and the deep tissues. If those valves aren't doing their job, you get a backflow of blood. That backflow of blood has a lot of pressure. That pressure pushes the fluid in the blood out into the tissues, and that's what causes the swelling. If you have any questions or comments, obviously give us a call at Sarasota Vascular Specialists. Come check out our website at sarasotavascular.com. Leave a comment down below. And again, I'm Dr. Jason Wagner with Sarasota Vascular Specialists. Thanks for joining me for another Whiteboard Wednesday. Thank you.